Will's with Core Special fans. Hope you're tuning into this emergency Facebook Live, or if you're just watching it, you might want to give it a click and see the whole video, as there's breaking news that is like Christmas to Chicago White Sox team and fan base that has had a historically rough franchise type season this year. So, the big news, Pedro Grifol has been fired this morning. This is according to the official White Sox X Twitter page, as well as Ryan McGuffey, Chuck Garfien, and other analysts in Major League Baseball working for the White Sox as well have broken the news. And it was live if you tune into 670 The Score. Really great morning show there on Molly and Haw. And ESPN 1000, Cap and J Hood, another good show. If you tune into those this morning too to hear more details about the firing of Pedro Grifol as well. But right here at What's the Score Special, I'm going to break it down. We're going to try and have some more content coming out here very soon in the next couple days, talking about the news of Pedro being relieved of duty as a White Sox manager, or as I like to call it, he used to always say, we're going to flush this loss and move on to the next one. Pedro Grifol's poor job as a manager, he flushed his job down the toilet himself. So, hate to use a pun there, but I think it fits what Pedro would say. Pedro just flushed his job down the toilet in baseball with the White Sox. So, the question will be with this White Sox team, who you go to as manager. I mean, in my honest opinion, and of course I'll break this down more in some other content, like I said, coming out within the next couple days, because this is big news, and we want to make sure we cover it in proper detail. Fill Will's Score Special fans in on what I'm thinking here, and what I want to hear what you guys are thinking. So please answer in the comment section who you want to be your next manager and how you feel about this Pedro Grifol firing by the White Sox. It could have happened at the end of the year. I think it should have happened earlier in the year, before the All-Star break. But now there's a lot of managers out there the White Sox could look at. I've heard people say on social media maybe Ricky Renteria returns or Ozzie Guillen returns. Popular fan choice out there is A.J. Przinsky, former part of the 2005 Chicago White Sox, former All-Star catcher with the White Sox. Catchers do make good managers. We saw that with David Ross and the Cubs, and I would even suggest the White Sox consider former Cubs manager David Ross as a managerial candidate. Alex Cora, I heard, could be available in the offseason if he does not stay with Boston. Skip Schumacher is another interesting name. He was a young manager. It started with Miami. Within the last 2 years, they let him go, so he's going to be available. There's a lot of different candidates out there, but you can't get this wrong if you're the White Sox. You can't go historically to what you did, bringing in Tony La Russa or, in this case, Pedro as well. It was crazy because White Sox fans were excited when he got hired because we're like, hey, we're going outside the organization to get a new manager. We're not going the same route we did with Tony or Ventura or, the Jerry Reinsdorf loyalty approach. But I think one of Rick Kahn's many big mistakes was hiring Pedro, and we're finally seeing that as Pedro has been relieved of duty as White Sox manager. He was very ineffective. A good baseball manager, from what I've seen growing up as a baseball fan my whole life, it's somebody that motivates his players, can get, when they're going through a tough loss, can motivate them and get them through the tough times to bounce back in games. That's how teams that we've seen come back in tough games have done it. Not just with, team chemistry, that's a big one, but also it's the manager you have. And that manager brings in a staff that can be effective. So this could lead to, going into the end of the season, a lot of changes. Will Ethan Katz stick around? Will, Eddie Rodriguez stick around? Will Jason Bourgeois stick around? Will Eric Thames stick around? There's going to be a lot of questions if Charlie Montoyo sticks around as bench coach, with the new manager. The new manager is going to want to bring in his own staff. Now, there is a chance Charlie Montoyo could be the interim manager the rest of the year. I think that would be smart. A lot of reports are saying they're not going to announce the candidate for White Sox manager until the end of the year. I would be fine if Charlie Montoyo, the bench coach, is our interim manager, because he did manage some winning seasons with the Toronto Blue Jays in the early 2010s. Before 2020. So I think he did a good job as a manager, and I think if you need an interim manager right now, if you go that route at this point, it can give you time to, go through those coaching candidates, but you need to go outside the organization. We're seeing with the Kansas City Royals, they brought in somebody from the coaching staff of the Tampa Bay Rays, and look how well they're doing. And Bruce Bochy, it's going to be interesting who they look at as manager. I'm really interested to see what names come out for candidates, but, the ones I would think of, I already mentioned. So there's a lot of pretty good names out there. You could talk to, I think looking at organizations that are successful right now, you look at the Dodgers and Tampa and the Padres. You can look at all those winning teams and, pick a guy from there, but you need to pick a guy that is right to help these players, because the White Sox are going to have a really young team already from this year into the offseason. I do see a Garrett Crochet getting traded. I don't see a Luis Robert getting traded. I think even though he's a Boras client, he's not going to command in a couple years that $300 million salary or plus. I don't see a guy like Luis Robert getting that amount of money. And that's just predicting from what I've seen recently. He's a talented player, but he's had some injury history. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. You have a really good young pitching staff of the future on the horizon. Kai Bush did have a rough outing, but he's looking pretty good as a pitcher, potential-wise. When Drew Thorpe's back and healthy, you trade a Crochet, you could get some top hitting prospects. So if, you need to recover from your pitching rotation, if that happens, the Sox should be okay. But a lot of young players coming in to the program. Colson Montgomery, I don't see coming up in September. I could be wrong. He may come up in September if his batting average improves. But this White Sox team needs a manager that can do the job right and to help develop these young players, to teach them how to win. Bring in a staff, not just of individuals, like they did with Eric Thames and some of these other guys. Bring in people that know what they're doing. They've talked about on the radio the White Sox aren't really smart in player development and analytics. I think they're doing okay, obviously from what we've seen with our young pitchers that we just got in trades even. I think Chris Getz and his front office are doing a pretty good job with that so far. I would back Chris Getz on that. I don't agree with some of his decisions, of course, by caping Pedro Grifol, but that's neither here nor there, as Pedro is now no longer the White Sox manager. But I want to hear what you guys have to say. There's a lot to talk about here and excitement in this historically franchise record Chicago White Sox team here in 2024. It's going to be hard for a long time to ever forget what happened this year in 2024 with the White Sox, but I think positive things are coming up in the future sooner than later for this team that calls 35th and Shields home and the Southside Chicago. So if you're just tuning into this Facebook Live, you missed quite a bit. Pedro Grifol has now been fired. He is no longer the manager of your Chicago White Sox. When the fourth quarter buzzer sounds, turn to us for your fifth quarter sports talk. I'm your host, Will Farrell, saying so long from this emergency Facebook Live at Will's Fifth Quarter Special.